Welcome Taurus to your in-depth monthly horoscope for January 2024 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs and influences particularly relevant to your sign. Now, on the 31st of December 2023, a really notable event took place. Yes, Jupiter went direct in your sign, but Jupiter is still within a really good angle with the Sun as you make your way into this new year. I can't wait to share more about this, but this can be very helpful if you're wanting to be enterprising and progressive in the new year. But also Venus, your ruler, is afflicted by the restrictive energies of Saturn right at the start of the year, and then again from the 18th to the 22nd of January by the dreamy drifting energies of Neptune. So that's going to be one we need to pick through as well. But so much to share with you. Please stay with me for more. As we make our way into year 2024, if you would like to understand what this will mean for you in a totally individual way and ascend above this zodiac broadcast, please give me 3 pieces of your birth data of time, date and place, or date and place if you don't know your time, and I'll produce for you your 12-month forecast. This will be a full 12 months from the time of your order, unless you order in the latter part of 23, and I'll give you the rest of that year for free. But along with your 12-month forecast, which will give you searing insights, you can also get your character analysis report, your life roadmap. That gives you a much more intimate understanding of the influences that have played out in your whole life and how you can work with them. Also, you'll get your zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, your Indian Vedic forecast and your Chinese forecast for year 2024, all free of charge. Please see the link beneath this video for more. So Taurus, your year 2024 starts off with that tremendous bright positive energy between the Sun in your 9th house of expansion and being enterprising, and Jupiter in your sign, which is a once in a 12-year opportunity to manifest our highest hopes, but also just to have a little bit of a belief that if we really think something hard enough and we visualize it hard enough, we can make it come into reality. So faith is important to your prospects throughout this new year. But the combination of those two is very good if you're someone who loves travel or if you want to try something new. A very exciting combination. But as I mentioned in the introduction, Venus, your ruler, is afflicted by Saturn, which is the greater malefic in traditional astrology. Now, Venus, your ruler, certainly for you, needs to preserve your sense of security. In the 8th house alone, it can bring some very positive benefits. For example, if you've worked in business, there could be some kind of dividend that pays out for you. If you have shares or investments, those can potentially be fortunate. Because Saturn's there in your 11th house, you may encounter someone who sees something or has a very different philosophy to you. For example, maybe is in a friendship group or even a family situation that someone's values and even morals aren't quite as you'd like them to be. So watch out for someone who could be quite opportunistic in not a positive way right at the start of this year. And the reason for this, I believe, is not just because of the cold, stern energy of Saturn. It's Neptune, also in your 11th house of friends, associates and higher values. That's afflicting both Mars and Mercury in its retrograde right at the start of this year. So we have to be really honest about this. As much as the Sun and Jupiter is radiant and very positive, there is the potential for some shenanigans, because when Neptune's in the mix, there can be distortion, but there can also be dishonesty, particularly with Mars. And then with Mercury, debilitated as it is, detrimented in Sagittarius and in retrograde, you may not be told the information that you really need to know. So don your detective's mac as you come into this new year. The thrust of Mars in Sagittarius can still bring you a good return throughout this year, but Mars applying to Mercury is saying don't rush things. So analysis will be really important. We all know there are conversations in life, and conversations are not really the issue, it's the comprehension. But also, even if we have a conversation where both parties comprehend where the other one's coming from, there's also tactics, because people will take particular positions to protect their own interests. So you need to be actually very shrewd and tactical as you come into this new year, because there could be somebody who may want something that you have access to, and it could be money. But equally, in a romantic context, the 8th house is where we're most devoted. And if you don't feel that your long-term future is really with the person you're with at the present time, Saturn to Venus and Neptune to Mars and Mercury is certainly giving you some big searching questions. So it's not what you're told, it's what the subtext is. It's what is really meant. So you're going to need to decipher what someone is saying to you or someone you encounter. And also watch out for some jealousy in a friendship group, because there could be someone who's a little bit dishonest and may not necessarily be letting on to you exactly how they feel. However, on the 2nd of this month, Mercury does go direct, but just be conscious that the square goes on with Neptune within 3 degrees right through to the 12th of the month. But there's great news on the 4th, because Mars punches its way into the sign of Capricorn, joining up with the Sun and obviously Pluto. And this is a very encouraging development, because Mars is exalted in Capricorn. And if you are someone who wants to break out and get some early year sunshine, jet off to somewhere completely different, or get out into the wilds and have some rugged, quiet time, Mars in the 9th house is the perfect place to go and get that kind of stimulation. If you're someone who has set some New Year's resolutions about getting more active, Mars in the 9th house certainly gives you a lot of encouragement to up your activities in quite a robust way. Which brings us to the 11th. We have the Capricorn new moon, but it's a gorgeous new moon this year, because it links to Uranus, which the Sun has been linking to Uranus over the last few years pretty consistently at the turn of the year. But this year, Jupiter is in the mix too, because when Mars moves into the sign of Capricorn from the 7th through to the 17th within 3 degrees, but exact on the 12th, these two are nudging each other on. Now Mars is the lesser malefic, but Jupiter the greater benefic. And of course Mars is about thrust and going for it in the moment, not examining our tummy buttons too much, and just having that spirit of adventure. And Jupiter is about that faith. So you could find that your confidence really starts to pick up from the time Mars moves into Capricorn, but it is going to be involved in that new moon, and the new moon linking to Uranus. Although Uranus is still retrograde at this time, what Uranus is saying and continues to say to you is you must use its energy to try and find your higher truth. Because Uranus is about authenticity, essentially. It's the rule of the sky. It doesn't like being in your sign. That's why we've had squabbles about land, which is very Taurian, but also about money. We've seen a lot of tension around money over the last couple of years. But in this equation, what Uranus is saying is, look, there are some innovations that we do need to embrace and can be good for us. Even a fixed sign like you, who has a real appreciation of the routines that work very well, thank you, and I don't need to change them whatsoever. But what you've learnt over the last few years with Uranus and Pluto's promptings is actually changing some things up can be exciting and hugely stimulating. So you don't have to change everything, but there are some modifications that you can make in the following month on the back of that very buoyant new moon. And because there's so much Earth in the mix, with Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus and Mars and the Sun in Capricorn, what you can do is realize some outcomes that are actually tangible. Always very important to Earth signs like you. Now also from the 13th to the 19th, the Sun's forging a very spiritual link to Neptune, and it just shows we shouldn't see Neptune only in its more challenging dimension. Neptune can be very much about our higher connections. So there could be someone that you link with, or you encounter someone who perhaps has a particular philosophy that really actually is something that you find very inspirational. But because that square between Mercury and Neptune really is sort of building up to its peak by the middle of the month, just be conscious that that is still there. You need to boil things down to extract the nub of whatever's being discussed. But the 14th sees Mercury returning back to Capricorn. It left on the 23rd of December, and Mercury coming back into Capricorn doesn't see it come out of shadow. That only happens on the 21st. But the 20th sees a very important moment for us all collectively, because this is my personal take, because the Sun and Pluto come into an exact conjunction right in the last minutes of the sign of Capricorn. Now Pluto is going to be coming back for one last time on the 2nd of September through to the 19th of November, but then it will be in your 10th house, Pluto, for the long term. So what we have in your 9th house is that there's going to be something that perhaps you see in terms of how far you've come in terms of expanding your view and knowledge. And I think when you look back over that journey, because you do have such an appreciation of stability, and some of the things you've tried might not have come off, some of them may have come off spectacularly well, but even if they haven't always come off, you should have tremendous respect for the fact that you have pushed yourself. And I think the 20th can be a time to really give yourself a genuine acknowledgement for the things you've tried. I always think when it comes to bravery, we have elite athletes that can sprint around the marathon course in just over 2 hours, and of course they're brave, and of course they're incredibly impressive. But what about the person who's going around in a Donald Duck suit to raise money for charity, and it takes them 10 hours, and maybe they're not so fit, or maybe they've got some kind of physical ailment, but they push themselves, keep going. Sometimes you see the newsreels the next day of the person finally walking over the finishing line after having, really shown tremendous courage. So whatever you've tried that's different, salute it. But then the 21st, it's an awesome day. The Sun actually moves into the sign of Aquarius later on the 20th, but on the 21st, Pluto back in Aquarius. But it's awesome because this is Pluto's birthday. And also Mercury comes out of that post-retrograde shadow. So what's the implication of Pluto in the 10th house for you? Well, it is about your connection to power. It's about your desire to be in the public eye. Sometimes people who have Pluto in the 10th house in the natal chart are actually more than happy not to be in the public eye, but often end up in quite influential roles. If you feel that you've got more to come from you when it comes to ambition, status, the material sphere, but at the same time you want to use the energies of Aquarius, which are more progressive, in order to forward those aims, this is a really good development for you. If you're someone who's thinking about perhaps leaving a job where you've worked in a corporate environment, or you've been in a long-standing governmental role and you're wanting a bit of a change, you may find that you could take on some kind of leadership role over the next few years in some kind of community or voluntary role, or perhaps playing a bigger role in the life of a younger relative, such as being a grandparent. And that can prove to be equally as gratifying for you. But your role in life It has transformed a lot with Uranus and Pluto in the 9th house. It's going to transform a lot with Pluto in the 10th. And it's going to really also see your relationship with people who hold the levers of power potentially change. You're either going to be a joiner and make it all the way to the boardroom, or you're going to be more of a rebel and embrace that Uranian side of the Aquarius energy that Pluto will in time evoke more and more. Initially, it's still very much in touch with its Saturnian rulership of Aquarius. But on the 23rd, Venus, your ruler, has escaped that right angle from the 18th to the 22nd, which may have caused some real confusion over a romantic situation, and it moves into Capricorn. But for you, Venus in the 9th house is all about you being a truth seeker. The 9th house, very Sagittarian, but of course the host is Capricorn. So if you feel that someone has been evasive, a bit mysterious, perhaps a bit shifty, maybe it is somebody you met over the festive break, you know, you're going to be so determined to get to the bottom of what their story is and what the situation is. And it could be that it's all very innocent and they've actually had some fears about what your potential judgments could be, and maybe they've got some historical issues, perhaps with health or their work situation or finance, and it's nothing to do with, you know, perhaps being hooked up with someone else without your knowledge. So some kind of clarity can come to pass. And also the Sun in Aquarius is going to forge a right angle with Jupiter in your sign from the 24th to the 29th. This is one of those squares which can be actually really lovely, because what it can do is push you to take that step forwards, along with Pluto's help, to be a bit braver in raising your profile. So if you are someone who tends to be a bit timid about applications or presentations, you know, we can all understand the nerves that go on in that type of scenario. But if for you that's been particularly a challenge, you're going to find yourself a lot more open to trying to strike out for what you think you're really worth. And also the full moon, which occurs on the 25th, is also embracing Jupiter in your sign in a T-square between the moon and the Sun in Aquarius, the moon in the sign of Leo. Now we know that Leo energy is very proud, but the 4th house is home and emotion. So if something's out of kilter between what you need in terms of your nurturing side of your life and what you want to achieve with your ambitions, it's possible it could show up on this particular full moon, because Jupiter can, in its square with the moon and its square with the Sun, make you very exuberant. So whether you want to transform things in your home environment or professionally, Jupiter's not saying to you you can't. It's definitely saying go, go, go. But it's also saying to you be aware of when you should say no. Because Jupiter sometimes can kid us into being overconfident, perhaps getting caught up in what we want to achieve and not staying quite as grounded as we could. But Jupiter in your sign tends to avoid that more than it might in some other zodiac signs. But this is certainly an opportunity at the end of this month to put your best bib and tucker on and really shine, because someone can definitely notice you now that Pluto's supporting the Sun in the sign of Aquarius. But it may mean that you'll need to make some sacrifices about your home or emotional life, and someone close to you might not quite get that. You may need their support and you may have to explain the scenario to them. So some kind of discussion that may need to play out at the end of this month, or maybe you'll be looking for a role that gives you some flexibility in your home life, but still gives you the opportunity to use your talents effectively in a professional context. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Taurus. I really, really wish you genuinely all the best for year 2024. And I'd be delighted if you would like, comment, share or subscribe. Or if you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please see the link beneath this video and you can check out my testimonials. I do them. I just don't talk about them too much because obviously I've been very busy with 3 moves in the last 3 years, so it's been an incredibly busy time. But if you'd like to speak to me one-to-one through Zoom or Skype, it would be a pleasure to help. For now, take care and goodbye.